everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today's is definitely a very spiritual reading. We may touch upon things that have relevance to your kind of 3D life and all of that kind of thing. We'll see what comes through it. But what we're really trying to look at is the core of your spiritual essence and so forth. And I want to give a shout out right at the beginning for the inspiration of this. So you'll see the title is Your Spiritual DNA, Your Path on the Tree of Life, or something to that effect. And that's actually because I was inspired by a relatively new reader, I think, to TarotTube, Green Tambourine Tarot. She did one which was called Your Spiritual DNA, and she used the macabre as a spread, like the macabre symbol as a design schema for her spread to look at this sort of issue. And I had that come up in my recommendations. I wasn't aware of her. She's a great reader. I definitely suggest checking her out and checking out her reading on this, because it might sort of add some other layers as well for you. But I thought, what a wonderful idea to look at your spiritual DNA. And I felt that I didn't want to do a direct copy. I wasn't going to do one based on the macabre, but I would actually look at the schema that for me works the best for looking at that kind of thing. And for me, that is personally the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. I feel like it is a very good representation of our personality aspects and our spiritual construct as it reflects our part of the divine, to all intents and purposes. And so I feel it shows all the various aspects, how they balance off within our life and what our particular quest may be, and almost to some extent what elements of the divine personality are most present in us. What do we most represent? Where do we have challenges? Where do we have particular blessings and so forth? So I thought I would use that schema, but I would use something very similar to her, and then I'm going to start with a spread based on the Kabbalah, and I'm going to have the cards turned over and we'll look at them one by one. So definitely wanted to do a shout out to Green Tambourine Tarot for that inspiration, and definitely suggest you go and check her out. She's a very good reader. So beyond that, I mean, that's pretty much simply what we're going to do. We're going to look at that. I'll explain as I go through the pathway down from the divine to earth when we incarnate, the pathway back when we go back, and we'll be looking at those two perspectives in terms of what you've come to do, and then how you're progressing with that, what there is still to sort of think about or focus on with all of that at this point in your life. And that's basically what the spread's going to do. So as always, you can do more than one if you like, because there could be an amalgam of things. There could be one aspect that is kind of your relationship sort of spiritual DNA, and another one might be your work and career and vocation. So you do you, but to help with the choice, I'm using a different tarot deck for each reading. So for pile number one, and I've chosen the Judgment card because it represents to me the calling, so that seems to be the best representation of the major arcana of what your spiritual DNA might be all about. So for pile number one, I have the Judgment card from the White Fly Tarot, so that's the tarot we'll be using for pile number one. For pile number two, I have the Judgment card from the Ornamented Tarot. And for pile number three, I have the Judgment card from the Organic Elements Tarot. So if you're familiar with those tarots, that might help you choose. The image might help you choose. You might just go by the number. Whatever works for you is fine. But when you know what all readings you want to go to, the timestamps, as always, will be in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile one, to your reading. So as you see, like I said in the introduction, I've shuffled and meditated into the energy of the collective for this and laid out the spread without knowing what the cards are going to be. These all represent the different Sephiroth of the Kabbalah, starting from Keter, the divine essence, all the way through to Malkuth, the earthly manifestation. And as I say, each represents sort of personality aspects. It's probably the easiest way to describe it. It's very rich and broader than that, but that's kind of in a way what we're going to be focusing on. So there are two pathways in the Kabbalah. The first pathway is the pathway down from Keter when we are incarnated, and that is called the pathway, the Lightening Path. So it goes from Keter to Hokmah, Binah, through Dart, to Hesed, Gevurah, then to Tiphereth, then to Nesach, and then to Hod, and then to Yesod, and then to Malkuth. So basically it's a kind of a jagged pattern, a bit like a lightning rod. The path back, which is the path in a way of the life that we live, and then what we sort of bring back when we go back to the divine before incarnating again, is the same way back, and that is called the path of the Serpent. So that's about, I would say, the getting of wisdom that we have and what we bring back to the divine as a result of that. So we're going to be looking at both those pathways. We're going to be looking firstly at the pathway coming down as your spiritual DNA structure, like who you are, what are the things that are probably going to really emphasize, how is that playing out? And then we will have a look, and we'll use some oracle cards as well to answer some questions about that. And then we're going to have a look at where you are at the moment, moving back, like how you're preparing for when you do reconnect with the divine before your next incarnation. So I will explain what each of the emanations mean, and I'm going to be reading this both literally for what the cards are saying, but I'm also going to be looking at the nature of the card as to whether I think it is a Sephiroth that in your spiritual DNA is particularly strong or is challenged in some way or is a particular blessing. So we'll be looking at that as we go through. So starting with Keter, this is the divine essence. Oh, that's really interesting with judgment reversed. So this is something very core about what you're bringing out. And what I would say right from the outset with judgment reversed there is that this may represent that this is a life where one of the real key challenges for you is working out what your calling is. Because judgment reverse suggests that you're coming out maybe from a past life where you didn't follow a calling. So that is going to be a very, very key thing for you this time around. Who truly are you? This is very much within you. There was almost a denial of it. Now that could well have been because of circumstances that were outside of your control. I don't mean that as a criticism, but it's very interesting is if right at the start there was almost a resistance to a calling. Some of you may have come to sort of spiritual ways of looking at things almost kicking and screaming. Some of you may be sort of like, I don't know that I really believe this. I don't know that I see that what I could do is special. Or you may have suffered for beliefs in sort of spirituality in past lives. But it's very interesting to see that there's something in your spiritual DNA that almost denies the importance of your calling. And so there could also be a kind of almost humbleness or something as well operating there. But I think this is a life in particular where this is something that you are meant to look at. You are meant to say, what is my purpose? It's not a life just to live and enjoy. This is a life to find a purpose, because I feel that this is saying that, as I say, probably from a past life, that this has been repressed. It's also possible, depending upon what we see with Malkuth, that you were born into part of what you were going to be born into a family or something like that where your calling would not be recognised. So one of the challenges is to rise above that. Because if this is the divine essence and then this is like the manifestation of it, it could well be that that was one of the challenges you were deliberately bringing in, that you were putting yourself into a life where you were very different in your family, very different to your culture, something like that. But whatever it is, meaning is incredibly important to you. I mean, it's important to everybody, but it's incredibly important to you. And finding that meaning is a very core part of your DNA. You are not a libertine. You are not someone who just lives for the enjoyment of life. But I feel as though for some reason that it's a challenge for you to connect to that. So then we start with that. That's where you're coming from. Then there's a kind of a sense of wisdom in your DNA that, this is Chokmah. Now, Chokmah is called the father, but it is also, and it could represent something about your relationship with a paternal figure, but I think it's more around it is the essence of the wisdom that you bring and that you have and that you're bringing down to do this, but it's detached at that point from compassion or connection to others. So this is a very pure sense of what you believe. And it'll be interesting, since you've started with judgment reversed, because there's almost a resistance. I think there could be a resistance between these two. So what we have with Chokmah, it's the King of Wands. Okay, I think here, this is why. I think that there is something in you that you know on a really detached level that you're meant to be a leader, you're meant to be inspirational, you're meant to take forward something creatively or inspire others, but there's a side of you that has either seen that abused in past lives or has had that, as I say, in your family life, repressed to some degree, or you're just kind of suspicious of it because, as I say, you might have seen people who have used charisma and that sort of ability in a way that was wrong. So I think that a big part of your spiritual DNA this time around is understanding you're meant to be a leader and you're meant to inspire, but there's something that you're kind of reluctant about it. So we'll look at that theme as we go through here. because that is a very powerful energy to have in Chokmah, particularly as I say, it is the Divine Father, and we have a King of Wands, so it's in its natural Sephiroth, and there is something inspirational there. And those two together, this is telling me, I think there's a part of you that knows you have a sort of destiny, but feels, am I being conceited? You know, am I being deluded? I think because this is because Chokmah is it's wise, but it's detached. There's that sort of sense like, how does that connect to other people? Because Chokmah in a sense is the furthest away from other people. Then we move to Binah. So this is the Divine Mother. This is where the wisdom is connected with compassion and with an understanding of the impact on other people. This pillar is called the pillar of severity. It has the sort of feminine side of things. And it's not necessarily to say that women are severe, but it is saying that it is often through the sort of more severe or more testing sides of our nature that we actually connect with others. And we get that sort of sense of understanding and compassion. So this, as I say, is a bit detached. This is less detached. This is how that energy is going to start to connect with others and have a compassion for yourself and others. So in your spiritual DNA, the High Priestess, wow, you guys are very, very psychic, very, very psychic, and very, very much meant to lead, but you are very resistant to it for some reason. Very resistant to it. That at its best, the High Priestess reverse brings the mysteries out. There is a possibility here that maybe one of the ways that you could connect all of this is to become a teacher or something like that. Inspire in that way, because if you have a resistance towards what your kind of core essence is, and a lot of it is spiritual, a lot of it is very high order, because this is the supernal triangle, this is the highest order of the whole tree of life. But the High Priestess reversed is kind of denying that in some way. But if you use it instead to say, what can I surface? What can I show? What can I bring to the surface? And I think in teaching others, that may be the way to do it. But I do feel like some of you, like spirituality, you kind of have a love-hate relationship with it potentially, or you kind of know there is more, but you're very suspicious of how you see it work through. So that makes Da'at, which is this next one here. I'll just move these down so that we can get to it. Da'at is actually not an emanation. It is not a natural part of the DNA. It is the place that one passes through, both in coming down and then also in going back up. To me, it's almost like the life review when you go back up. So it's a place where we're going to ask a question when we look at how this comes down, but it's also a place where we face who we really are. So I think this will be interesting, because I think there is a reluctance here to take on, a very advanced level. So let's see what we get with Da'at for you. The Hermit reversed. My goodness. I find it really interesting, I have to say, that a group of people coming to a reading like this are getting this sort of energy, because it's very pragmatic. It's very much in the world. It is wanting to connect with others. So I think that what we're looking at here is the dilemma of the leader, the spiritual leader. Because there is a loneliness to that. They say, that uneasy is the head that wears the crown kind of thing. There is a sense of having, if you take on that role and you understand where you're at and you use how you've developed, there is a sense where the connection with others is the challenge, how you balance those things. And it's almost as though you would deny that ability that you have and that power and that knowledge to connect with others. So this is the thing to look at, because you have to be you. You have to be you. If you deny your leadership or whatever, then you're never truly connecting with other people anyway, because you're not being who you are. But there's almost a kind of a self-censoring energy here that you're being, and I'd say you brought it in before, and as I say, you've probably played out some of this dynamic in your family and with early relationships. But like, it's a highly evolved spiritual being who's meant to lead, but who doesn't want to. So that is going to be a question. We'll have a look at the question with that, but that's interesting. So right up there, we've got a kind of ambivalence right from the outset about your own abilities. So then we get to some of the more personality aspects where things start to kind of really play out more in the day-to-day level. And so the next one that we look at is Hesed. So this is here. So Hesed is where we are kind to ourselves and kind to others and merciful. So I think you actually need to be kind to yourself, but I think you worry about your wisdom, your knowledge, what you could do, like whether or not that would be seen as harsh or not kind or something. There's some sort of ambivalence going on. So let's see what we get with Hesed. The moon reversed. So that's interesting too, because the moon reverse and the high priestess reverse, to me, both of those are where things are brought up to the surface. Something does need to be brought up to the surface. Part of your spiritual journey, I think, is to reconnect you with your wisdom and your knowledge. And I think you've boxed it away for some reason. So I think there's definitely that. And you've got to be kind to yourself to bring these things up to the surface rather than keep it hidden. But it's also saying that that's the kindest thing you could do for others as well. Again, I get this feeling of teaching. I get the feeling that you kind of naturally should be a leader, all of those sorts of things. But I feel like you're really, really ambivalent about power and about the use of it. And it reminds me of something I've said sometimes in other readings, that saying that the person who's best suited to be the president of the United States is the person who doesn't want to be. That's you, like, I'm not saying you have to be the president of the United States. I'm saying that kind of energy. But there is something, like whether, as I say, it's something from a past life or whether it's, whatever you were told when you were young, you need to be kind to yourself. And that is how you can be kind to others, by bringing this stuff up to the surface, by stopping denying it. So really interesting. Remember, this is the lightning path. This is what you brought down in. There is a kind of a natural ambivalence about being who you are and following your calling because of, I think, the issues that you have about where you would sit relative to others with this and what that means in terms of connection with others. So then we move to Gevurah, and Gevurah is where we have self-discipline. So if we are kind to ourselves, this is where maybe it could be part of the answer for you, because this is where you could potentially regulate and make decisions. It's where you could discipline yourself and have strength to actually start to bring to the surface what you need to bring to the surface. So we have for you Two of Wands reversed. Okay. Now, this is interesting too. So one of the other things about this spread that I'm looking at, and I think I'll touch upon it now, I'll talk a little bit more about it as I go through, is that wherever there is a major arcana card, it's a very powerful Sephiroth for you. Where there's minor arcana, less so. And so what really interests me is, apart from like the king being in their own place, their own Sephiroth is very powerful as well too. In this upper order area, very, very powerful, very, very powerful. There's a very, very powerful need to follow a calling, but an equally powerful reluctance to do it. And here, where you could have like had the strength to and the discipline to do it, we have a lesser energy. And it's an energy of choice. And it's interesting that it's Wands and this is Wands. This is saying that a core thing for your spiritual DNA is to allow yourself to make a choice. There's an avoidance of the choice here. There's an avoidance of the call. So if you allow yourself to make the choice, and the thing that interests me as well about this is that you are meant to be a leader or whatever, but it's saying in a way that the choice to do this, the discipline to do it, may be to do this in a different way to a natural leader. This is why I'm feeling something like teaching, or maybe even something creative like writing or singing or something like that to get the message across. Because I feel like this is saying that it's less about the structures of the world, it's less about the discipline of the world, it's less about might is right, it's much more about something creative. But that you've just got to allow yourself to make that kind of a choice to do that. And then it's almost like you don't have to worry about it because you are so strong in many ways that if you take an approach that is less full on and you're comfortable then with running with it, it's like you don't even have to hold it in discipline or regulation. It's like, I think that if you were to use this ability that you have in a position of power, you would have to be much stronger there, because you would have to, the one way to make sure you don't become the thing you despise, for instance, is to have the self-discipline. I feel like they're saying there's a different way, a creative or a teaching way or something like that. Which then leads us to Tippereth, which is where we find beauty and where we find joy. And it's a very spiritual aspect. It's a very spiritual energy. So let's have a look at that, because that might be also, because I think, as I say, there's a kind of a harshness towards yourself. You're holding yourself in regulation, but it is saying there's an easier way. So let's see what Tippereth has to say. 5 of Pentacles. Okay. Something about this has made you feel alone. That's like, and as I say, whether it's in a past life or whether it's early in your life because you were very powerful energy in your family and it wasn't accepted, you find it hard. You find it hard to be joyful. You find it hard to see beauty. There is an issue. The wiser you are, the more developed you are. It is hard because you see what's going on. And you may, in fact, even have taken the viewpoint of not wanting to bring it to the surface, and that's something you've got to do. You've got to find a way to do it because it's isolating for you. It's certainly saying that beauty to you is not about money. It's not about material things. But there is a sense of loneliness there. It's like how beauty for you would be, how could you move past loneliness? How do you connect with others? So this is your spiritual DNA dilemma because you're a natural leader. How do you do that in a way that you can connect with others? So I think we're getting a sort of sense of this. This very strongly feels to me like in past lives you've had positions of power and they've been very isolating, and it's spiritual knowledge. You're very, very powerful spiritually. You may even have spent lives sort of in very monastic or ascetic types of ways, but like this is not what you're meant to do this time. You're meant to find the connection. This is why this is important, to understand how to balance those two things, pile one. So that then leads us to Nasak, which is where you can have victory. So if this is your dilemma, this is your spiritual DNA at the moment, finding a way to do your leadership without disconnecting from others, this is where or how you could find victory. The magician, owning your power. Owning your power. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. As I say, the very fact that you have ambivalence about it means you're the right person to have it. And also that you will find the way to connect with others and find the way to get this message across and bring things to the surface and lead without being a despot. So you can have victory in that, and in your communication skills. Again, communication, teaching, creative works, things like that. There is something about how you can communicate with others, and you have the skills that you need and you have the knowledge that you need. You're very, very powerful at manifesting as well. So I just think that maybe you were too much within your family to start with. Just imagine, I can just imagine a child with this energy would be a little bit threatening in a family, not because they mean harm, but because it's like coming in as an extremely old soul. So your victory is in owning your skills, not running away from them. So then if we know how to have victory, we also have to know how to submit and go to the glory of the divine, to what we're meant to do. So this is to answer this question up here. Like, this is how. If you own your power, this is how you actually then accept what your spiritual DNA is and what your purpose is this time. So we have the Wheel of Fortune reversed in dealing with something that either didn't happen when it should have happened, or in dealing with injustice, or in dealing with understanding the ebb and flow of fortune in some way. So I just think you're a group that you know your power, you know your ability, but you are very ambivalent about it, and the way you have to learn to go, this is the time, that this is, I think that you can't run away from it. One. And so that's, but if you sort of go, the timing's wrong, or it's not, I don't feel ready, or whatever, that would be an issue. Moving past that, using the magician to move past that and to say, I do actually accept that some things are within the DNA, within the web of life, within what my purpose is, and I will submit to that. That is actually how you can reconcile this, that it's not really ultimately your choice. And I think where that comes to is that if we think about our spiritual DNA as being us, there is a degree to which we are what we are. And like, we may wish we were something else, but we are what we are. And in the greater scheme of the universe, and the greater scheme of creation, that needs to be what it is. Otherwise we'd be something different. So I think there is a kind, this is about reconciling yourself with your own power and who you are. And I think letting go of the sense that you can control things. That's what I think this energy is, of going, okay, I accept that I do have to do this. So then we have Hasod, which is the connection between all of this and what you're going to do in life. So how does that connection operate? Ace of Cups through the heart. And that connects directly back to Keter, because Keter is the realm of all the aces. So this is the thing. Your heart is incredibly pure. Your heart, this is why you're ambivalent, as I keep saying. Your spiritual DNA is comes from the heart and wants the connection with others. So but you have something that you're bringing, and I think it's a message. I think it's some teaching. I think it's something creative, and you're meant to sort of bring that up, not be scared of it, because that your heart is your connection to the earth, and that's what's brought you here. You've come to this world with love, and that, I think, is why you are concerned about the energy that you bring. So then how does this manifest in the, if you brought this energy down, this great heart, this great knowledge and wisdom, but this ambivalence about how you apply that, and the part of you that wants to make the choice but kind of recognizes that you can't make the choice. How is this manifesting on earth? Knight of Wands. Okay, you have diminished yourself a bit. Now, I don't think it's the wrong thing to do. Let me just say that. I actually think that is actually a really good answer to this. That if you are coming from being the King of Wands, this highly creative, charismatic energy in Chokmah, with all this knowledge that you could bring up, I think and I think this is part of the answer, that if you were full on with all that you were, it would be too much. So the Knight of Wands just dials it back a bit, but is still moving forward, is still an engine of change, is still an engine of inspiration, and is a little bit freer with yourself. The King is a little bit more, has more responsibility. The Knight's got a little bit more freedom to move. So I think this is a sense of liberation, that if you can understand, if you can say, okay, I'm not going to be the President of the United States, but I am going to be, a university professor that's talking about some sort of social issue or something like that. It could be anything, but I'm just sort of saying that I feel that's what happens. And to some degree, you're kind of right to have some of the ambivalence, because this energy that exists in Chokmah could not exist in the earth. So your whole spiritual DNA is finding that balance and permeation so that you can have connections with others, so that you can be in the world, but also so that you can bring some of this up. You can answer the calling and use your skills in that particular way. So we're going to look at each direction. So we're going to start firstly with a couple of cards around the soul quest, and this judgment that you're actually, as I say, maybe a little bit ambivalent about. We're just going to see a little bit about when you came from the divine for this life, like what were some of the energies right at that point of sort of coming out and going in the lightning strike to come down to earth. So we have soothe your soul. Okay, there's something. I do think that you brought in something from a past life. Definitely. I think it was difficult. And I think this life is actually about you finding the way to still be yourself and to do what you're meant to do, but not to sort of suffer consequences as a result of it. And we also get cardinal virtues: hinge, fortitude, wisdom, temperance, justice, way of action. See, these are very active cards. So, but it is wisdom. The wisdom is there's an action. I feel like you are the sort of people, actually just bring this down so you can see it a little bit more. I feel like you are the sort of people who know that, like, you have to walk the talk. Like, the one thing you wouldn't be is the sort of like virtue signaling type of person who says all the right things and then does whatever they like. And you may well have come from, as I say, some sort of religious group or whatever that kind of said, oh, well, you can be whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do as long as you buy an indulgence to get your way to heaven or something like that. That I feel like you really understand that. You see the connection of that, and you know that there is an action, and you knew that the only way you can soothe your soul is to take action. You can't avoid this. So there was a real push towards it, even though, as I say, it's like finding that balance to get it right and still feel virtuous. What do you do? Walk your talk, that kind of energy. So then what question would you have asked in Da'at when you were working out, and I think that was where we had the Hermit reverse. So again, it was sort of like kind of the connection with others. What question would you have asked at that point to help you navigate coming into the world and being in the world? We have Auriga. What will you do with today? Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Yeah, it's about action. See, I think that one of the fundamental things in here, in the balance that you're trying to get, is that you understand the consequences of things and you understand the consequences of power. And I think that when you're coming down, it's going like, I understand that, I get that, but this time I have to do something. It has to be about how I act in the world, and that's why we've got such an active card there. So maybe I can't bet on everything. Maybe I just have to go, that's okay. And I just use my abilities and my knowledge and so forth. I can't just kind of like make sure everything is perfect and everything is timed in the right way. I'm going to just have to try and do the best I can and virtuously act. So I think you kind of knew this was not, you had to do something in this life. This life was really calling upon you. So then let's get a card for how that manifests in life. If you're knowing you need to act, then down sort of in the 3D area of Malkuth, how that manifests. Birthing, grounding, centering, connection, yeah. Do you know, I just suddenly felt the divine in terms of splintering out and knowing itself. You know, like maybe the divine was lonely. and like I almost get a sense of loneliness about this. I think there is a loneliness in your spiritual DNA. That's why you know you have to come into the world and act and connect. That's why it's important. And like how you do that is so important because you want to do it the right way. But you knew you had to come and do this. There's a real sense of like this is a very important life for making that kind of connection. So that's the process of the lightning strike going down. Also want to look at where you're at with the path of the serpent going back. So we're going to start with what is beauty to you, picking up the Tippereth side of things, which is where you could have felt lonely, where you felt that you weren't really connecting. So what is beauty to you? New moon, deliberate intention, yeah. Being able to make the decision and being able to act. Connecting what your true intent is with your actions. That's where you find the beauty. It's like, and you can only do it on the earth and only in connection with others. So I think that you've worked that bit out. You know you've got to use your skills and so forth, and you're going to have to do something with this. You're going to have to take on the leadership and work out the way to do it where it connects with your intent. Then what question would you be asking of yourself if you were returning now, going through the art, having sort of looked at this life? Canis Minor, what if your grief liberated you? So whatever as you have suffered, whatever you have gone through, it's been the thing. Remember I said that this is a pillar of severity, and it's called that because it's only through the things that we have as grief that we actually start to connect with others. So there's something in that. I do think past life or in this life, I think in this life for many of you, it's probably difficult in your home life or something like that, or early learning. But your grief is actually something that liberates you because it connects you with others in a way that you're kind of like higher order sort of spiritual nature would have made it hard for you to do. So I think there's something in that for you. And then how will your soul enter the supernal triangle when you go back? Like what is the kind of likely outcome of this incarnation for you? And remember, it's just one of many, but like what, given your spiritual DNA and how you have been acting with it in this life. The opening, discovery, eureka, path, bridge. Yeah, you're going to work it out. You're going to work it out this time around because you know you have to. And you know that there's a lot, and I think you will help others. You will help others open up and understand things. So I think this ambivalence, as I say, is a mark of the fact that you are truly virtuous. And you suffered for some of what you knew, which other people didn't know, and all of that kind of thing. But in doing that, that will bring you the connection. It will create the connection that allows you to be a leader, but also connect to others. So we're just going to pull two cards also from the Ethereal Orbs deck for some star energy that will also help you in activating this spiritual DNA as the closing out of the reading, pile one. So we have Atar, frustration and dispute. Allow your mind to wander, hinder yourself from unnecessary answers. So act. As long as you act in alignment with your virtues and you understand the consequences of things, that's fine. But you are dealing with frustrating things within yourself about your own ambivalence, but also the external world must have created some of that. I think you've seen the abuse of power, and I think you don't want to become the thing you despise. So allowing your mind to wander and understand that sort of thing will be helpful for you, because this is a life where there's going to be some tests around that. And Algartha, realization and desires. If abundance is what you seek, your ambition must stream like a waterfall. Yeah, like action. You can bring abundance. You can get past these frustrations. And I think you can do it in a way that you feel is virtuous and a way that is aligned with what you're doing. But I think it is taking on a leadership role, using all your skills, but in a way where you are not telling people what to do or being their boss in some way. You're educating, supporting, collaborating with, that kind of thing. So, yeah, you are meant to be a leader. And that's the journey for you, I think, and that's in your spiritual DNA. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So we have the cards laid out in the Tree of Life spread, as I said in the introduction I would do, and we're going to go through these one at a time, and we're going to look at what they're saying, and also where there's major arcana cards, there's particular strengths and so forth, particular focus and so forth. So we'll touch upon that as we go through the reading. There are two pathways in the Tree of Life. So this is from Keter all the way down to Malkuth. These are what they call the Sephiroth. To me, they are almost like divine emanations of the divine personality, the personality that we then have. And so when we're looking at our spiritual DNA and what we're here to do and all of that kind of thing, where the strengths are, where the focus is, and what the story is within this as a construct will hopefully tell you what your spiritual DNA is. There are two pathways. One pathway is pathway from when we incarnate down from the divine to Malkuth. That is called the Lightening Path. The pathway that when we return, and to some degree the pathway that by implication we are following at the moment to prepare ourselves for a return, to meet our spiritual DNA, to meet our quest, is called the Path of the Serpent, and it goes back the other way. Once we've gone through each of these one at a time, we're going to look at the path of the Lightning Path, what you came down with, and then we're also going to look at the Path of the Serpent, where you are at the moment. So that's how the reading is going to be structured. So we start with Keter, the first emanation, and that is the divine essence. So to me, this is a very strong distillation of your spiritual DNA, your calling, all of those sorts of things. So for you, we have the Fool. So that tells me, I think, that in this life there's something very new. I feel like, to me, this feels like there was a graduation. I honestly don't feel the collective who come to this are like young souls. So I don't think this is sort of suggesting that you're sort of just kind of like just starting on your sort of journey out from the divine or whatever. So I feel as though at the end of each major arcana thing through to the world, the Fool is in the next step. So there is something here in your spiritual DNA which is about adventuring into the new and taking something to a new level. So you are almost the beginner's mindset, but it's not that you're a beginner spiritually or anything like that. It's like you are now going to explore something in your DNA, and it might be part of your spiritual DNA anyway, to be the initiator, to be the explorer, to be the one who goes where others haven't traveled. So that may be a very big part of it. But whether it is truly who you really are and you do it all the time and you are the great inventor, the great innovator, all of those things, or whether that is what you're meant to do this time. Either way, your spiritual DNA is about the exploration of the new, the taking of a new path, and a sense of optimism about doing it. The Fool is upright here. There is a sense that there is something beautiful and wonderful to be discovered in this life, and in your spiritual DNA sort of working its way through. So we then go to Chokmah. Now, Chokmah is often called the Divine Father. There are two pillars here, though this is the middle pillar, but there is the pillar of severity and the pillar of mercy. This is seen as the divine masculine side. This is seen as the divine feminine. The first of these, which is Chokmah, is wisdom, but is wisdom detached from any connection with anything else. It's almost the most, apart from Keter itself, the furthest from other people. So it's like the first essence before you connect to others. So it's wisdom undifferentiated by compassion or empathy or any of those sort of things. We get that with Binah. So this is a distillation of truth for you. something very true, something very core to you that is you, as opposed to you in relation to others. So this is showing us the Six of Cups reversed. Okay, you are very much of the new. You're not nostalgic at all. In fact, I think that there must be something, in many of you, it might manifest that you're very nomadic, that you don't like to sort of like commit to staying with places or even people necessarily for long periods of time. And I bring no judgment to that. You are not sentimental. You are not looking to the past for what you're doing now. And for some of you, there may be a very deep detachment from your family that plays out here. You may feel that you came into a family that was not really the pathway that you were on. But whatever it is, there is a very unsentimental feeling to who you are. It's like, there's a saying, hang on tightly, let go lightly, and that's kind of feels like you. It feels like to be this essence of the person who will explore, there has to be a sense that you're not tied to the past. So you know the implications of that, and I think you're quite comfortable with that. So then if we move to Binah, we get that wisdom, but then we get the compassion and empathy, how we connect to others, because for all that you are maybe a little bit of a loner or a little bit of a explorer, you do still need to connect to others. So let's see how that plays out. The Three of Cups reversed. So the Three of Cups, threes are in their natural place when they're in this Sephiroth. So there is a natural energy here, but it's reversed, an enjoyment. There is something in your soul that is highly individual. Freedom is incredibly important to you. And it's almost as though to you that you have and this may be something that you're going to work through in this new journey, there's an issue of like, can you enjoy the connection with others? Will that hold you back? I think that's going to be one of the things in your life, like how you be the complete individual and be true to who you are, but also have connection. And I think you may have some struggles with that. I do think for some of you, there was probably very big dissonance in your family, and a sort of sense of being a stranger in a strange land. But it's interesting there because it's not a sort of sense of joy coming in connection with others. You may actually, I'm getting, because this is how we do connect with others and so forth, you may, in fact, your new way of doing things in an almost unsentimental approach may help others deal with that. Like I'm getting for some of you, like being a therapist or a shadow worker or something like that, you may actually, your capacity for detachment might be something that you use to help others deal with that. And that may be a way to still connect without, like using your capacity for detachment and almost unsentimental, just looking at the truth. That may be something that helps others deal with grief in some way, because there is wisdom here, because there is wisdom and compassion. So that's interesting. So one of the next card is actually for Da'at, and Da'at is not actually a Sephiroth, so it's not an aspect of the divine or your personality, but it is almost like where the life review would be between lives, and it's sort of where we face who we truly are. So let's see what we get as an energy there. Ace of Pentacles. Yeah, you're of the new. I think that most of you, you're on a bit of a mission. You're like this life, you've come in to bring something, probably something very materially new, like a new business, a new life in the world. And if it's a new life in the world, like a child or whatever, you've got to kind of work through some of this energy. But there's something new that you're bringing in that I think creates a new legacy. Like it's like you've got an ace here and then you've got the fool. And like that is really, really important. And when you are looking at yourself fully on, your capacity to do that is going to be the thing you judge yourself by. So that has its challenges, as I say, in like connection with others. And when you are of the new, there isn't a road or a path already worked out. It's all potential. So you know there's a huge potential here. So I think one of the things for your spiritual DNA is to work out how to maximize that potential. That's going to be how you judge how far you got in this life. And I think it may be why there is almost this sort of sense of detachment, because it's like you're on a mission. You just have to get something done. It's sort of like a bit of the energy of a workaholic, potentially, or someone, as I say, who is so nomadic because they're exploring and doing new things that they don't connect with others, because in the end, what they want to know at the end of their life is that they've actually created this new thing, that they didn't let anything get in the way. So that's interesting. So then we go to Hesed, And Hesed is where we are kind to ourselves and others. And you do need to be kind to yourself in this because there is something quite detached about it. And to others, because if you're going to build anything, you need to be able to connect to others. So let's see what Hesed has. The Two of Pentacles. Okay, this is where the material choices are made. This is where the compromises are made. So you're not completely detached from others. You actually understand that to bring this in, you need to connect with others. But I think for you, in terms of being kind to yourself, allowing yourself to let go of the reins and let sometimes other people have a say in something is going to be important. It's like you can't create all this completely on your own. So I think that's the energy operating here. And the interesting thing is that you're a very pure energy here, because we have a major arcana card here for Keter. So where you're coming out from this journey is the thing. And then we're getting a lot of minor arcana. So it's almost like how you decide to do all of this. Like the decision making is not actually the main thing. It's more keeping things open. So I think there's something here. A kindness is to actually allow others in for a viewpoint, because it's like, you've gone out of this with the beginner's mindset. As I say, you've gone out into this to bring something new, and you're kind of like, you're thinking, I don't have a roadmap for this. I don't have a set idea. It's not developed. And you want to like focus on that. And I think the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to connect with others and allow other people to be part of the journey with you in some way, because it's so independent. So then we have Gevurah, which is how we discipline ourselves. So if we've got all of this sort of energy of the new, but you don't really, it's not the past, and it's not necessarily to you all about relationship or anything like that. It's about creating something. Then what is the discipline and strength that you bring to this? Eight of Wands, freedom. You're the natural traveler, you're a natural adventurer, you're the natural creative, all of those things. Freedom is the important thing. Even freedom from a set idea about what this is going to be. So that is it's a force of liberation for you, but it's not a powerful force. As I say, we're not seeing a lot of major arcana here. That you are almost deliberately keeping yourself detached, I think, from outcomes, so that you can let something develop as it naturally would develop. So there's a lot of wisdom in that, actually, Paul, too, I think. So that's interesting. So then we go, okay, if freedom is the thing, that you put above all else, so that you can let this become whatever it's going to become. What would be beauty to you? Tippereth is what is beauty, what is joy, what would be a good outcome around this? Six of Pentacles reversed. Okay, something that is not of the established order, something that is not hierarchical, something that makes people equal. So there is an answer for you as well too. So there is an answer there that connecting with others, as long as you maintain the freedom of the vision, brings in the right collaborators. That would actually make it joyous for you. I would say things in the past that has not worked. So you, as I say, you maybe came into a family where it didn't feel right, or as I say, past lives or something like that. So joy in the collaboration of equals. And again, it kind of goes with the energy. That's how you would, it's a very wise way of doing it, as I say, because if you're going to do something new, you can't, you're kind of leading out by being the explorer, but on another level, you can't start to sort of determine too quickly what it is, because you need it to grow and develop into whatever it is. So I think collaboration with others, finding your equals, all of that kind of thing is where you would find joy, and I think it also connects with the freedom. When you are amongst equals, they're not going to try and stop you doing what you're doing. It's more like you get the effect, the Gestalt effect of the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. A group of equals come together, they're not competing with each other. So I think there's the outcome of this is more important to you than who gets to sort of put the name on the book or whatever that might be. The beauty to you is bringing the right people together to create the new thing, whatever it is. So then we go to Nasak, which is where you can have victory. If you have worked this out, you know that you want the freedom to find your equals and to be detached from the past where maybe that hasn't been the case, and to keep something very pure. Victory to you is in creation. very interesting. The Ace of Pentacles can be like, as I say, birth, that kind of thing. So it's really being the creator and bringing the abundance in and taking that to fruition is victory to you. So that's more important to you, that the thing is created, than that you are the boss. And this is a very powerful thing for you. You are almost assured the victory, because here we've got the major arcana. The major arcana are the original idea and its fruition. Because in a sense, you're not making it about your power to get there. You're making it about something that has to do with equals. So very, very wise. So then we have to look here with Hod at where we have to submit to the divine will. So if we know what we want to have as a victory, what is the divine will around all of this? Page of Cups, that it comes from the heart. That what this is about the heart, and that you know what it means in terms of that. It's very interesting too when we have these cups reversed up here in the supernal triangle. As I say, I actually feel for you, your new vision actually helps others let go of the past, which then connects to the heart. It's a different way of doing it. You're not indulgent. You know, some people, are very kind and very indulgent, and that has its purpose. But I think your detachment and your let's move on and let's make something better is your way of expressing the heart and your way of connecting to the divine and the purity of the idea. So then we have Hasod, which is what connects all of this to the earth. So how this sort of concept and idea and the spiritual DNA are bringing in and manifesting the new for you, how that connects to the earth. Knight of Pentacles is in your work. Okay, this is in your work and what you're dedicated to. I do think there's a kind of a real sense of a workaholic around this. There's a sense of a person on a grail quest. You're going to do what is necessary to do it. And I think if you were a leader, and you could be a leader in this, you'll be like a servant leader. But you may not even, it may be more that you're an influencer and you just get the stuff done. Because as I say, you're not about who's boss. Lastly, we have a look at Malkuth. How is that manifesting in the earth then for you? Wheel of Fortune reversed. Okay. The challenge, this is a challenge for you, I think. It's around getting the timing right. And I think it's because you don't have, I often feel like the Wheel of Fortune is a bit like a compass and timing. And I often say that it doesn't really matter whether it's upright or reversed. It's going to be it's going to be good and bad, and things are going to go and flow, and it's really about getting things the timing right. So I think what's really hard when this is your spiritual DNA, which is bringing something very new into being that hasn't been before, a new idea, a new belief structure, a new creative project, whatever it might be, a new social order, is you don't have the navigation tool for the timing because there isn't a prototype of it before. So I think this is actually to detach you from a sense of that there is a set time to this. It's allowing things, it's kind of connecting back together to being free to let things happen as they come. But I also feel there is a itch. There's a kind of the new comes when you're in the earth. It's something you think its time has come or something needs to change. Like there is a sense of a need to change. It's not just exploring for exploring's sake. Okay, so let's have a look at the two directions. So as I say, the first direction is the Lightening Path. So we're going to just get a little bit more information, looking at, firstly, the energy around the divine spark of you coming down. Then we're going to have a look at a question that you would ask, in a sense, into art, like what are you really seeking when you come into the earth with your spiritual DNA? And then we're going to have a look at how that manifests. And then we're going to have a look at the path of the serpent, going back up with where you're up to now. So firstly, around a little bit more information about this, the Fool, the energy of the new, the energy of the explorer, as you sort of came into being for this incarnation. We have Labyrinth of Sweet Surrender. Well, that kind of makes sense. This is what is really interesting. You start with a very powerful card. Your manifestation and victory is very powerful. The manifestation here is very powerful because this is where you've got the major arcana. So you are powerful. That's what I'm saying. I didn't feel like you were new to any of this. But this is a path of surrender. This is a path of saying, if I'm going to do the truly new, I won't know what the navigation timing is. And I will have to find collaborators, and I have to let things be free to develop as they are and stay pure to the heart. So you were you knew you had to detach. You knew it. That is a wisdom. That's why the Six of Cups, like detaching from things, the sentimentality of the past, all that stuff, just letting go, going with the flow. Let's see what else was operating. We have the Hebrew letter, power letter He, window. 15th path working of Aries. Aries makes sense. Aries is very much the initiator. That makes perfect sense. The Emperor, this has got something, see the Emperor and the Empress, so there is a kind of, the victory is also about the divine masculine and feminine coming into alignment, I would say, for you. Power of the life force, yeah, the life force. Virtue is guiding, moral courage, fairness, yeah. There is a sense of wanting fairness. These two cards in particular, the Knight of Pentacles and the Wheel of Fortune, like that things should be fair. The vice can be callous or narcissist. So yes, if you got so detached from other people, you could become that. I don't think you're going to though. Everything here is suggesting because you kind of surrender to allow this to properly emerge. You're not going to be trying to direct it too much. The connection is between Tippereth, which is, sorry, this one, Six of Pentacles reversed, the joy in connecting with others, leading but being first amongst many, like all kind of at an equal level, and Hokmah, this sense here of the detachment from the past. So I would say that you have been in situations in other lives and so forth where a lot of your kind of exploration was done either at the behest of very powerful people or to provide you with power, but you worked out in the end that corrupted what came out of it. You want to keep this pure. You want a pure birth of what is new. And so this is you understanding that connection and why it's so important to detach from the outcome and connect more to other people. So that's very powerful. So what question would you have been thinking that you wanted to answer in this life as a result of that when you were sort of into art coming down the lightning path? We have Virgo. What if you were sovereign unto yourself? Ah, there it is. There's the answer. So yeah, I think that it has to do with power that comes from your value and the value of others. If you're sovereign to yourself, then you also allow other people to be sovereign. I think that there is something in your spiritual DNA that has been involved in new things where maybe they got corrupted by power and money and all those things. But if you are sovereign to yourself, that allows other people to be sovereign as well. This is the thing. How do you do this? How do you stay true to the vision? And then how do you find the right people to connect with? You're very, very well aware that when you are in uncharted territory, and that's what your spiritual DNA is about, you have to try and make it sort of pure rather than sort of, and let the exploration and the creation be the end in itself, not all the other things associated with it. So that makes perfect sense. So then how is that sort of manifesting, or how did that first manifest when you were born into your family, into this world, into the material world, bringing this sort of like very open, visionary surrender energy and feeling sovereign enough to yourself to do it? What we get is, oh, this is interesting. This came up for one of the other ones, earthing. This was necessary. You had to ground this. This is why also the connection was a Pentacles card. There is something very material, and we have the Ace going to the Ace of Pentacles going to the Empress. There's something very material that your spiritual DNA is asking you to create in this life, but you've recognized that the only way to make that really come to its proper abundance is to be able to surrender and to bring what you bring to the table and find equals to bring what they bring to the table as well. So that's very beautiful. So let's see how it's going. So we're going to ask a little bit about where the beauty is for you. Like if you're sort of like heading back up and you were looking at this heading towards a life review, where is the beauty of this, the Tippereth energy? How is that operating for you? Soul star energy, conscious connection. Yeah, the beauty is the connection. This is it's interesting in these readings, it seems to me what I'm finding is that your DNA is about the fundamental balance issue. And for you, it's about the explorer versus the collaborator. And so the beauty comes in that conscious connection, in seeing how to be, as I say, first amongst many, but many are all first in their own way, that kind of thing. So then we say, what question would you ask into art after this life, having sort of, given the trajectory of what you're doing at the moment, what are you most likely to consider when you're doing a life review? Taurus, How does your rage imprison you? Okay, so that could suggest at the moment that you might be struggling with some of this. And that might be also why we had that sort of sense of detachment up there and with the past. You may be finding it hard at the moment to find the right connections, because this is a very spiritually developed way of looking at things. As I say, it gets past the ego, it gets past, like the kind of material outcomes or whatever. It's a very pure thing. So this, I think, is just inviting you to think about, how do you continue to detach enough to be able to find the right people? I think this is suggesting right now that could be being a challenge, if that's what we're seeing at the moment. That, if you were tomorrow in the life review for some reason, and I'm not saying you're going to be, but you might have felt, where was the frustration? I think that's the thing to think about. Where are the blocks to the free-flowing energy here? Okay, and then we'll have a look at how your soul could manifest going back to the supernal triangle after you've sort of done this spiritual DNA in this life. The beginning, start, vision, transition, time. I think you're going to do this over and over. I think it's very, very cool to you. I think you are an instigator, you're an explorer, you're an initiator. So it's one of many. I think you just do this. I think you come in to bring the new, the shock of the new. And I think that sometimes it's frustrating as hell, because there's a lot of conservative stuck energy, but nevertheless, you look like, regardless of all of that, you're ready to do it again, you're ready to do it again. I think that the people who've come to this reading, you're agents of change. That's a very key part of your spiritual DNA. And this is a process, you're the necessary seeding that comes in for new things. Okay, so to finish off, I'm just going to draw a couple of star cards from the Ethereal Orbs deck for any other advice, thoughts, challenges, blessings that will help you in manifesting your spiritual DNA, pile 2. So we have Aldera, glorification and invocation. Success is determined by your mindset. Treat your journey with patience. So yeah, patience is necessary. You'll have that, I think, though. You have the Knight of Pentacles. It's a very patient card. So I think you know that you need patience. I just think you're feeling a bit frustrated at the moment for some reason. But this is saying you will succeed. And that's saying that as well too, because it's who you are. And Alfeka, fulfillment and serenity. Watching things grow at their own pace can be more rewarding than attaining them. Yeah, this is, I think you know that. I think that's why you're going to be able to deal with this. But it is frustrating sometimes. Taurus is slow as well, slow, any of the earth signs and so forth. To go from the ace to the empress to the sort of birth, it's a gestation period. So there's something that you need to be able to let go and surrender and allow things to grow at their own pace and to bring the right people in. But it will be a bit frustrating sometimes, but that's the pathway of the person who's doing something new, and that's what your spiritual DNA is, pile 2. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So as I said, this is a spread based on the design of the Tree of Life, and we'll go through the cards one by one to look at what your spiritual DNA is. So for those not familiar with the Tree of Life or the Kabbalah, it is one of the ways of describing, or the way that I tend to describe it, is like if you consider the divine splintered out with all of us to know itself, just as a basic principle, that in the as above, so below concept that we reflect the divine. It's like the different aspects in balance of the divine, the kind of personality aspects in a sense that are then manifest through us in our personality structure, our spiritual DNA, our soul, all of that kind of thing. So each of the emanations in the Tree of Life represent an aspect of the divine that we then reflect within our spiritual DNA, and how we help to unfold the divine knowing itself, or whatever your belief structure might be around all of that. So this seemed to me to be a good way to get a sense about the spiritual DNA you have, and who you are as a person as a result of that, and what that will drive you to do, all of those sorts of things. So we're going to go one by one all the way down. Now there are two two pathways in the Kabbalah. The pathway from the divine down to Malkuth, which is earth, which is us incarnating in the world, is called the Lightening Path. So that goes from Kera to Hokmah to Binah to Da'at to Hesed, Gevurah, Tifereth, Nesak, Hod, Yesod, or Hesod and Malkuth. So it's like a lightning path. It looks like a lightning strike. And that's the energy of the divine coming down into the world as you, so to speak. The pathway back, which is the pathway back, which we, in a sense, we go through in our life because it's as we prepare eventually for returning, is called the path of the serpent. So we're going to, once we've had a look at the schema, we're going to have a look at that lightning path for you, some key aspects of that, and then we're also going to look at kind of where you're at now and where you're heading as a result of that in the path of the serpent. So let's get going. So the first card is Keter. So this is the divine essence. So this is going to be a very important card for describing something about your spiritual DNA and what this life is about and where you're at with your sort of spiritual pathways. So we have the Page of Pentacles. Okay, so that says to me there is something very material that you're meant to be looking at in this time. Like, it's my classic business plan card. So I do think it could be that many of you who have come here, there is something very material, something in the business world or the career or something, as I say, that has form and function that is very key to what you're trying to do. And you've worked a lot out. You've got a lot of skills and ability in this space. This is the time when you're determining what you would want to do with it. Because pages are sort of, you've gone from the ace to 10 and you're now at the point of going, what do I do with this energy now that I've mastered it? So I think there's something very material. That does not mean it's not spiritual. In fact, the very fact that you came to this deck tells me you're a highly spiritual group because this is a highly spiritual deck. So, but I feel that sometimes a highly spiritual person understands that when we're talking about what we're doing in the earth, it is about something material. I think there is a little bit of an immaturity sometimes in spiritual approaches that look down on the material and think it's lesser. Because we learn and we build and we grow, there's a reason we come into the material world. So I think you have that understanding of that and you've mastered what you need to do for that. So it's going to be something material that's important. So then we move to Hokmah. Now, Hokmah is called the Divine Father. It is undifferentiated wisdom. It is the most detached from other people and like the earthly existence. So that's why it's like it doesn't have the compassion that comes from the connection with others. We get that with Binah. So this is a very pure distillation of you, your wisdom and so forth, quite separate to all the connections you would have with others. It is the most alien part of you, but to others, but the most pure part to yourself. So we have the Five of Cups reversed. Okay. This is interesting. The Five of Cups to me, when it's reversed, is about letting go of emotional energy. So I think that this is showing that there's something in you, and it might be why you have a material focus, where the way that you detach from emotional things is to detach fully. It's like to create anything that has been an emotional disappointment as a philosophical question, something to learn from. At its best, that's a very, very advanced thing to be able to do. To be at the point of going, I can take my emotional hits, I can take my disappointments, and I can reconfigure them to understand them in the greater scheme of things. And certainly for people who are going to create something, you need to be able to do that. So I think that you have brought in your capacity to work through the material and understand what it is in the material world. You have managed to come to terms with the disappointment that it is to be in a material world dealing with a whole bunch of other people. And what I mean by that is that, like, one of the things, again, with spirituality is the sort of concept, whether you're talking law of attraction or anything, of, we just have to kind of like think high vibrational thoughts and everything will work out. But that's not how the world operates, because we are all thinking that all the time, all trying to do what we're trying to do. And to some degree, that energy cancels itself out. One of the things that you have to be able to do spiritually is understand that you're not always going to get your way, and you're not always going to win the love, and you're not all those sort of things. And if you can get to the point where you're detached and understand it as something that is a learning process, rather than thinking that your spiritual development is all going to be shown as, how how much success and how much you manifest and so forth. I think it's actually very good that you have that, because if you were just focused on the material, then you could be sort of like looking in that way of going, oh, well, you know, like the more money I make, the more spiritually advanced I am. And there are people who believe that sort of thing. So, but I don't think that's not you, because you've understood that part of the whole thing about coming down from the divine and being in the world is that we are with others, and therefore it's not always going to work out the way that we want. There seems to be that you've got to that level of maturity where you can be a bit detached about that. Now, the risk, of course, is you can get too detached from people. So this is where Binah is very important, because Binah is the connection of your wisdom and understanding with compassion and empathy for others. So let's see what we get there. The Page of Cups reversed. Okay, so this is saying, I think, that one of your challenges in this life, because you're trying to bring something in material, is going to be working out what you want emotionally as well, rather than just detaching from it completely. So because the Page of Cups, being a page, again, is like you're well developed in the emotional side of things, but when a page is reversed, it's like you're denying working out what you want. So this would suggest to me that either in this life or in other lives that you've brought this energy in, there's been an emotional cost to creating what you needed to create in the world. And one of the ways that you've dealt with it is almost to deny that that's what things are about. So there is that kind of thing of like not being too detached, like having a philosophic view, certainly, so that you can take the hits as well as the wins, but not detaching from your heart. So I think that Binah is asking you to think about that. Think about, you know, have you worked out what this would feel like if it was what you wanted? Or have you shut down your feelings a bit so that you don't feel the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, so to speak? So with that kind of schema of like you are meant to manifest something in this world, you know, and you're well developed to do it, but you've got almost a armor on you around shielding yourself from emotional disappointment. We then go to Da'at. Now, Da'at is actually not one of the Sephiroth. It's called the invisible Sephiroth. It's not one of the personality aspects. It's sort of like the life review when you're coming back. And I think in terms of the lightning strike, it's what you face in yourself, what you are facing in yourself spiritually at this point and in this life. So what do we have there? The Four of Pentacles reversed. Okay. So part of why this is your spiritual DNA to bring something in and develop is that you have gone through disappointments. You have gone through almost prototypes of whatever it is that you want, I think, in other lives that haven't lasted. I think there's something about creating a legacy in this life for you. I think that's a really fundamental thing. I feel like I'm seeing here a kind of a pattern where something had a foundation but didn't quite hold before. So the question for you is how to make something hold. And you may, in fact, be bringing in some programming where it was like because you were too emotionally attached to something, you felt that was what the Achilles heel was. But I do think that Binah is saying you need to kind of really be clear about what you want here, particularly because this is a legacy. This is something important. So I think that one of the questions that you're trying to answer, what your spiritual DNA is trying to answer in this life, is how do you create something that lasts? And I think there's a promise you will do it, but like that's the thing. And it's the thing when you sort of are coming down, like how do I manage to do that? And when you're sort of reviewing a life after your life, it will be, well, how much did I do that? There's something about because the Four of Pentacles, of course, when it's upright, can be a little bit too stuck. So it's not saying in an essence that things that didn't work before, you know, like that's a tragedy. It might have been, you know, how do you also make something that's sustainable that doesn't get stuck at that level as well? So there's something very much about what you're going to create in the world that's important here. So then we go to Hesed. So this is where you're kind to yourself and to others. So this is showing the challenge, and in all of them we've seen a challenge up here. So the challenge for you is how to not sort of like limit your growth by trying to protect yourself against disappointment. So let's have a look at how you can be kind to yourself and others with Hesed. The Magician. Okay, this is very powerful. Your kindness to yourself and to others, incredibly powerful. This is the first major arcana we've had here. So this is showing that kindness and empathy and caring and all of those things and generosity of spirit are very core to you. You are very, very good with that, and you have a lot of skills, and you are a manifester. Maybe it's saying that one of the reasons why you've protected your heart so much is because you were basically, always have been, a very kind and generous person, but some of the rest of the world isn't. And so maybe that's where you tried to detach. But this is inviting you to reconnect to that, to reconnect to your kindness, to yourself and to others, because you have great power in that. It's one of the things that's going to make you create the legacy, because underneath everything, people are going to see the innate goodness of what you're trying to do. So I feel like this is showing that you had something as a saint of past life, and maybe even earlier in this life, it depends, where you had a beautiful, pure intent, and you did have the capacity to do it, but something disappointed you. I think your kindness was taken advantage of, and therefore now you've kind of detached a bit. But it's like it's saying, really, your power is still in that. Your power is in still being able to connect and be kind to yourself and to others. So then we go to Gevurah. Now, Gevurah is where we have discipline. So this is where we have strength. This is where we can really, really kind of like balance all of this off. So you have the High Priestess reversed. So this is also very powerful, but you have limited it to some degree because it's reversed. So your strength is surfacing things, bringing things up to the surface, being very realistic about things. But the interesting thing is, I think that, and as I said, I knew there would be something like this come up, because this deck will only have drawn very spiritual people. I think you're very high level adept, magician, High Priestess energy, something like that. And this is showing that you limit it to some degree. And that your strength kind of comes in understanding the moderation of the power. And I think these work really strongly together. I think you're very, very powerful. You're a very, very powerful manifester. But as I say, there's been some disappointment. You've detached quite a bit. But in fact, your real power is understanding how to use your power, like not overdoing it, like having the discipline not to overdo the sort of like spiritual side of it, but to also think about how does this manifest in a way that it can last. It's quite a complex sort of energy, actually. I think it's the power of kind of a high magician, really, who can manifest something. But I just feel as though maybe what happened is that you took the power too far in some other life. Or in this life, that energy that you've had has caused you to be detached from other people, and other people to not connect with you or something like that. And so there's a sort of a sense of like how you regulate that power. It's how you hold yourself in sort of, a kind of eternal vigilance to not overdo it. So that leads us to where you find joy. So if you've got something here where you're a natural manifestor, you're actually meant to bring something into being. But I think that power has caused you issues with people emotionally and has made you question the emotions around it and what legacy you're bringing in. Tippereth may be part of the answer for you about how you bring beauty to this, how you bring that balance. So we have the Wheel of Fortune. So this is where the power is all coming in how you're manifesting your power. You're meant to be fortunate. You're meant to bring something in. This is a destiny sort of energy. Your timing is very good as well too. I think that if either earlier in this life or in another life you were disappointed and disconnected from other people because of not really knowing how to use that ability and power, this is the life where you're going to be able to do it. So I think there's a very strong energy here that you're going to be able to manifest something and you'll get it right. So take joy in that, because that's a very, very powerful and positive card to have in the point of beauty, which then leads us to victory. So what is victory going to be to you? Temperance. Wow, all the power is here. I find that really interesting. You are meant to be a manifester, but like up here in the supernal triangle, there is some pain that you're transmuting, and this life is going to be about transmuting that pain by bringing the power into this life, definitely. And by being balanced in it, the balance between what you can do and where that would be too much. So I think that most of you are very, very powerful spiritually, but I think you've been burnt by that power before. I think in this life, your victory comes in bringing balance in there. So that then requires you to submit to the divine. We have to submit to the divine. We are who we are, whether this is something we want or not. We are who we are. And the best way to follow our spiritual DNA is to submit, in a sense, to that rather than wanting to be something else. So that's the challenge of Hod. So what do we have there? Eight of Wands reverse. Yeah, and you have to kind of put the brakes on yourself a bit. That's what the balance is. This is, you are the magician. That's what this is saying. And it's how you use that responsibly. And how you use it towards creating what is meant to be created rather than sort of something that just proves your power. I think that this group has probably not necessarily misused in a bad way, but but kind of gone through that kind of thing that I think happens with high magicians or whatever. It's like, do they want to be God or whatever? I think that there's a sense of almost realizing, well, actually, no, you can't be God. You're a part of God. We're all part of God, but you can't be a God, so to speak. So the wisdom in this is creating something in this world that you moderated your own power. So then how do you connect that understanding to the world? Hasod is about the foundation, the connection. So we get Empress. Wow, really powerful. You're very powerful, but you up here, it's almost like you were humbled. Like, I think that's what's going on here. I think that you were humbled or detached from others, or really your heart was broken about something in as I say, probably a past life. But this power that you're bringing in this time, you are going to be able to create. This is why it said right at the beginning, you're ready to create something. You're ready to manifest something. You're ready to birth something. Very strong. And I think this connects back to Binah. So I think you're also ready to reconnect to your heart. So how is that manifesting in earth? The Four of Wands, in connection with others and in teamwork and in moving forward. So it's really interesting because there's been a bit of a theme of this across all the readings about, and it kind of makes sense if you're looking at spiritual DNA, it's what makes us an individual, it's what makes us separate. And so part of the journey of the spiritual DNA is also what connects us. And in varying ways, that's been a pattern in all of these readings. For you, you are here to work out how to manifest something with all this spiritual power you have, but in good relationship with others, because I think that your power has been a bit of a challenge for that in past lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to firstly have a little bit more of a look at the lightning strike, at the energy of this spiritual DNA coming in by asking certain questions. And then we're also going to look at the path of the serpent, where you are now in sort of moving back towards what your purpose was. So firstly, just a little bit more information here up in Keter for this manifestation ability that is part of your spiritual DNA in this life. We get equinox, balanced release. Yeah, it's all about balance. Balance of power and restraint, which all people who are powerful, who reach that sort of level, have to come to terms with. So that's a really cool thing. You're coming in. That's what would create the legacy. That's what would create something that would last. And we get, oh, it's interesting. This came up for one of the others as well. Cardinal virtues. What is virtuous? What is wisdom? Temperance. How do you bring in the temperance? Like your victory is kind of assured, it's saying, but by following something that is virtuous. And the way of action is what you do. But for you, it's kind of like, how do you limit some of your action because of the degree of your power so that you can connect with other people? That's the sort of key thing. So what question would you be sort of asking into art when you were looking at who you truly were and thinking about your spiritual DNA for this life? We get Capricornus. What if that magic you were looking for was in the work you were avoiding? Okay, so that's interesting. Because this is Capricorn, very much an earth sign, what you manifest. It's like, what didn't you do before that maybe detached you from others? What work or what steps didn't you do? How do you bring that into balance? This is how do you bring the virtues and the action into alignment? So it's a very strong self-knowledge with you about, I think, what you need to do differently in this life, maybe to past lives. So then let's also have a look at how this was manifesting when you were sort of first born, when you first came into this world. What was the sort of spiritual DNA purpose? Inner guardian, protection, defense, refuge. Okay, so I think you were looking for in your family a sort of like a safe place to start to learn this. Now, interestingly enough, that could operate on one of two different ways. If you were looking for just a safe place so that you could grow up and connect with others and not deal with all of this power till later, then you would probably have been born into a family that made, like really connected with what you were doing and that you felt very at home in. You equally could have made a decision that your guardian was more in it to yourself, and that you went into a family or an environment where you weren't going to be powerful or listened to, so that you could actually experience the other side of it, experience the side where you weren't the powerful one, because you were going to come into your power, but knowing that was a way of guarding what you were trying to achieve. So it could be one or other. I think it'll be different people, it'll be different things. So then let's have a look at how it's playing out now with the path of the serpent. So the first thing I wanted to ask was, what beauty are you creating at the moment? Like how is that sort of tipper at the wheel of fortune, all of that kind of thing operating for you at the moment? Earth star energy, sacred ceremony. It's all about earthing. It's all about manifesting. Sacred ceremony. There's something, I think that you are starting to see that you have a sacred mission, that what you're trying to manifest materially in this world is sacred in many ways. And that, again, would probably be part of the thing that gives you that discipline to balance it. Because when we are doing something in service of something sacred, we're not going to overstep our power. The thing that we're doing, the thing that we're trying to create, the legacy we're trying to create is too important for that. Then, like, what question would you ask yourself, if you were in a life review, sort of given what you're doing at the moment and your understanding of your spiritual DNA at the moment? Taurus, how does your rage imprison you? Okay, so it's interesting, this came up for one of the others as well too. I think that people are coming to this, there's a frustration at the moment in creating what you want to create. And it would make sense that if you're very powerful, but at the moment you're a bit limited, like you're a very powerful entity, but you're born into not a particularly powerful family, for instance, or something like that. There's something around that at the moment. It's keeping it sacred. It's not getting angry, because as I say, you're kind of like, you're like nuclear fission or something. Like, your kind of level of spiritual ability, if you kind of let loose with that, it would take all before it. But that's not going to. It's going to detach you even further, and it's not going to create the legacy that you want. So it's like, how do you balance that? How do you balance that? So I think that's something to think about with what you're trying to bring in. If there are frustrations at the moment, not to let that, make you tip over into the excess of the power sort of energy. It's just, and the question that is asked and at that point is always like facing ourselves, like what do we really need to look at to properly bring about our outcome? So then let's see where you would be heading if you manifest what this is, and you manage to balance that kind of rage or frustration given the amount of power that you have. The witness, memory, support, foundation, resource. I think that's about being witness to yourself. Having that detachment, not detaching from other people, but detaching from yourself and the outcome, so that you can manifest what will last, but will also use your power the right way. Because it's a very strong sense in this of the need for internal regulation because of the power. It's like, if you sort of like had, the nuclear codes at your disposal, you've got to be a very, very self-aware and very aware of the consequences of things. So I feel like there is something here where you have to witness your own power so that you can regulate your own power. Okay, so to just finish off, I'm just going to draw a couple of cards from the Ethereal Orbs deck, of star energy for you. Anything else, which either could be some blessings or some other challenges around you. I think manifesting what you want by coming to terms with your power and using that responsibly and virtuously. So what do we get? We get, firstly, Alfeka, fulfillment and serenity. Watching things grow at their own pace can be more rewarding than attaining them. This one came up in another reading as well too. I think that some of you may have connected across too. One of the things might be around your career and one might be around relationships or spiritual growth. But in any case, yeah, you do need patience, and being a witness going into a witness mindset and allowing things to occur as they're going to occur, and not trying to use this power to push the envelope before the timing is right. Because remember, you have the Wheel of Fortune. Your sort of beauty and so forth can come from letting things happen in the right time. That's part of what you're sort of needing to learn because of the power that you have. And Athea, wisdom and affinity. Duality teaches us that in order to love, we must bind together what differentiates us. Yeah. Okay. So there is something about connecting to the heart again. And being able to love as well as create. I think it is, it's a challenge that we would have if there is that degree of power. How do you do that? I think there might almost be a little bit of a nervousness about connecting too closely because the impact that you would have is so powerful on people that it might make you detach too much. So I think that's one of the things, not detaching too much, being able to be witness to what you do yourself so that you make the good, virtuous decisions and you walk the talk and all of that kind of thing, allowing things to happen in their time, because you have the power to bring it in, but you don't have to prove that power to force it, by forcing it. In fact, this is learning to, have a wild stallion and learning how to actually ride that stallion, because there's so much energy there. It's a kind of a sense of grace. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 3. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.